Today's show brought to you in part by our friends at Black Type Thoroughbreds. We just produced this really cool video you can find over on our YouTube channel. Got to spend the day at Breeders' Cup with Jake Ballas, Matt Miller, and the rest of the team, hearing all about what they've been up to. What a year they had in their last offering. 5 runners, 3 of them ended up with Black Type, including 2 Grade 1 placed runners and a Grade 3 winner as well. Pretty cool stuff, and you can learn more if you check out the video we did. You can find it at our YouTube channel, or if you go over right now to inthemoneypodcast.com and look down at the blog page, you'll find it as well. Check it out at inthemoneypodcast.com, Black Type Thoroughbreds. And of course, you can learn a lot more about Black Type Thoroughbreds at their website, blacktypetb.com. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our late week show. It is December 10th, a Friday, as we record it, talking about racing for Saturday, December 11th. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornital, as you can see, back from the desert, back from the Meadowlands, back from Miami, back from San Diego, and in the Brooklyn bunker once again with the hat to prove it. And very excited about the show we've got on tap for you. Also want to let you know we've got a bunch of extra content via In the Money Media this weekend that's not part of the regular late week show. We have our Gulfstream Park shows. They're going to be for Saturday and Sunday, audio only. Go to In the Money Media at iTunes to check that out. And then a video only project, I think it's going to be video only anyway, our special show for the Hong Kong International Races, sponsored by attheraces.com and twinspires.com. Look for that on social media. Probably that's the easiest thing is, follow me on Twitter at LoomsBoldly. I'll send that around. Maybe we'll make a blog post for it too over at inthemoneypodcast.com. But the fun is only beginning on the late week show this week as we have all of that extra content for you. And oh, by the way, if you're an In the Money Plus person, going to have Frank McGoey, one of our most popular guests ever, giving his thoughts on Louisiana Champions Day. That's going to be going up soon. For more money on that, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. But we still have a great show here today. My friend Jessica Paquette talking about Aqueduct. We're going to have Candice Hare talking about a little bit of Hong Kong and a whole lot of the Jra Races. And Matt Dinerman, not only to talk about Golden Gate Fields on Saturday, but also to give us a little bit of a preview of some of the fun stuff coming up between Golden Gate and Santa Anita as that big winter meet gets ready to start on December 26th. And we're going to kick off the show in earnest right after this. First up on the show today, very happy to be joined by a guest I had the pleasure of meeting in person for, I think, the first time out in Tucson over the weekend. You should be following her on Twitter. You should be aware of the great work she's doing with the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. You've seen her on various simulcast feeds. She is Jessica Paquette. Jessica, how are you?
I'm great, Peter. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I could have just done that. You've read about her in the New York Times and made that the intro as well. How are things going? Are you recombobulated after a few days out in Tucson?
It was a little bit of a whirlwind. It does feel kind of like adult summer camp out there for a few days, but it was great. Got to see a lot of people, got to sit in on some very interesting seminars. And, it's really fun to get the industry together. And I know we have a lot of work to do and, progress, not perfection, right? But it's nice to be talking about some of these things.
No doubt about it. Was there a particular message you took away or a highlight in terms of someone you saw speak at a panel or anything along those lines?
That's a great question. I mean, I think for me, the importance is, getting some federal oversight in racing and pushing HISA forward. And I know there's a lot of questions about who pays for that and some things that need to be addressed. But I think, if recent times have shown anything, we do have a real need for a little more oversight in the sport.
Yeah, I missed the HISA panels, and I'm actually going to make some inquiries to see if any of this stuff is going to be available after the fact. But I do want to hear more of that chatter. For me, it just came down to the changing landscape and the opportunity as a result of that with the sports betting revolution. And then, of course, the potential of horse racing getting involved from a fixed odds point of view. That's something we've talked on these shows a bunch. But just the idea that, the amount of money bet on sports, even in its nascent stages, the idea that it's already at 5x what racing is, I see it as an opportunity, especially in a culture here where everybody doesn't grow up a horse racing fan necessarily. So that to me means a lot of these new people coming in betting money, there's going to be an opportunity to hopefully show them what our product is about and get them as customers. And then there was that amazing stat, and you were sitting right next to me when we heard this from Andrew Moore at the FanDuel TVG Sportsbook, saying that in what was the number, in less than a year, they've already seen more money handled on the sports betting side that have been handled in whatever it was, the 20-year history of TVG. I'm paraphrasing here, but
it's staggering, though. Yeah. It is. And these are, informed, engaged customers that want to bet on a product. And I think there's nothing better to bet on than racing. So hopefully they'll come to the dark side, join us. It's fun.
I love it. Anyway, we could do an hour on this, obviously more, but we'll put a cork in that bottle for now. And
I do have one quick question for you.
Please.
What would you like to see as a panel next year? Because I have some ideas. I'm curious what you think, having sat on this a little bit.
Well, I think you and I have a very similar reaction to this, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but I will say that the horse player perspective, woefully underrepresented. Ed DeRosa asked a couple of questions in that CEO's panel. I obviously asked my question in the fixed odds panel about, just trying to look out for the interests of horse players. In terms of the specifics of what it should be, though, I'll leave that answer to you. Do you have a formulating a plan here?
Well, I think obviously the horse player perspective is needed. Another thing I was thinking about, kind of as I thought about some of the panels and the folks that were there, this is one of the rare opportunities that this is a racing industry event, not just a thoroughbred racing industry. So we get folks from the U.S. Trotting Association and also the quarter horse people. And I think this would be a really interesting panel to get everyone together, engage on their aftercare, because thoroughbred racing certainly does our part. And I'm maybe not as familiar with what the AQHA does for aftercare, but I'd love to have a talk with them and see what their plan is going forward. Because again, that's another really evolving landscape. We've come a long way, but we have a long way to go.
That's for sure. And that's a great point. For example, I have no idea what these other industries do. Surely there'd be a way we could learn from each other and help each other. Folks will have already heard the ad for this auction happening this weekend. This anonymous donor has put forth an incredible collection of Kentucky Derby memorabilia. So, I'll give the specifics in the little ad that runs before this, but curious to get your perspective. Have you had a chance to look through those lots? Anything in particular you're interested in? You're going to be making any bids yourself?
I may make a few bids. There are some really cool things in that auction. If you're a fan of the history of the sport, check it out. It's available on the TRF Inc. website, of course, and on our social media, and we'll be promoting it throughout till the auction ends in a couple of days. But it is just staggeringly cool stuff. Buy yourself a Christmas present, people. Treat yourself.
Treat yourself. Absolutely. And treat the TRF in progress, because the proceeds largely and maybe entirely going to be going to
the Kentucky Derby items, the Kentucky Derby programs, I believe, go to benefit the herd of nearly 500 retired racehorses in our care.
Great stuff. Okay, now we'll dive in for real. Race number. Oh, I have the wrong day up. That's not going to work. We don't want to talk about today. But it is still going to be race number 4 that we kick on with. We've got a starter allowance going 6.5 furlongs on the dirt. Jessica, how are we going to light this candle?
This is sort of an interesting one for me. I think Trash Talker, the one to beat. I think the Atlas Barn, very live. Jose Ortiz aboard, heavy favorite last time. But a couple of question marks. I'm more interested in the Linda Rice entry, Rudy Rod and Bezos. I do think Rudy Rod's the stronger of the two. Bezos clearly was cut out to be a much nicer horse than he has turned out to be. And sometimes those big class dropping ones, I don't know if he's ever going to really find his level. But Rudy Rod looks like a horse on the upswing. Barn's always live off the claim.
Makes sense to me. Anything to back up those two, or are you just looking at the 1 entry and the 10 to get through this leg?
I kind of like Charlie 5-0 with some solid form, kind of tactical speed. I think he'll be right in the mix. This is a pretty tough sequence, honestly. As I was looking through it, there are some salty races later on, so I'm trying to be a little bit conservative in the early couple of legs.
Well, makes sense. I liked 2 of the ones you mentioned, but my top pick was going to be the number 7, 12th Man. I was thinking could get a really good setup this time around. Looked to me to be plenty of pace signed on. And then the previous 2 runs, I feel like 12th Man's gotten the worst of it, stuck against the flow. Was hoping he could be ready for a peak effort in the 3rd start off the layoff, but I'm not going to be pressing too much. I definitely want to use plenty of that 1 entry. Again, just like you, leaning heavily towards Rudy Rod. I think the race could be run to suit for him as well. And then Charlie 5-0, very, very interesting. Maybe as a chance to be the best speed horse from a stalk and pounce type position here. I probably should give Trash Talker a little bit more of a look. I was just worried about all the speed signed on and that one being a very short price. I had left off in my initial reckoning, but certainly a runner to be respected in race number 4 as we kick off this pick 6. And then we pivot to race 5, where we've got these 2-year-old fillies made in special weights going 6 furlongs on the dirt. I was going to go with the 7 Can't Hurry Love, maybe a little bit master of the obvious, but I just feel like she's been unlucky. Maybe you could even say in the last 3 times, running very near the speed figure par, finding one better. Felt to me like she was going to be the best early and can maybe finally break through in this spot. And then I also like the 2 Royal Currency as the other number I was going to use. Charlton Baker, we'll talk about him a little bit later on too. Excellent trainer. This one spent plenty of time on the rail on debut on a day where I didn't necessarily think that was the place to be. Steady, good-looking works for the return to the races. I was going to try to get through it 7-2. How do you see it, Jessica?
Can't Hurry Love could not talk you off of this horse. Really, this horse has done absolutely nothing wrong. At a certain point, I feel like you get only so many chances for me as a maiden. This is a horse I will definitely use kind of in the horizontals. I will try to beat her if I'm just playing this race as it is, and that's going to be with number 5, Celine the Queen. Have to New York bred stakes winner. Sometimes for me, when I'm handicapping a race, if I really don't love any of the horses that have already run, first time starter it is, they have not disappointed me yet.
Yeah, and De Paz is one of these at this point, like automatic throw-ins, you know.
Sure.
I mean, just
I think this horse looks very legitimate here.
Yeah, I didn't do too much digging on the pedigree, but I mean, taking a quick look through looks fast enough to be heard from. And just the fact that the horse is 5-2 in the morning line, David Aragon, a man who does his homework in terms of both pedigree stuff and also, you know, occasionally hearing the whispers about the ones who can run. This is one I am very tempted to go ahead and just admit that I'm gonna throw in now, at least in a backup regard. Yeah, I mean, Can't Hurry Love, I think a lot of people will be at that breaking point with her now. And, you know, if it's another seemingly no major excuse effort and gets beat, I might move to that camp. But I'm a forgiving type, Jessica. I'm going with one more try here with that one.
I think I was called prickly a number of times this past week, which makes it a desert sort of thing since we were, around so many cactuses, but I really felt, like I was among my people.
Pretty funny stuff. Let's move on to the 6th race. We've got 3 and up New York bred filly and mare allowance types going 6 on the dirt. We will keep it with you, my friend.
This is where I'm going to single. I think number 4, Vacay, first time late 6, really interesting, has been a useful stakes sort of type on the shelf since February, but I never minded horse coming out of Todd's barn off of that kind of layoff. He gets them ready to go first time out. And what I like most about this horse is I think she gets the ideal pace setup with Breakfast at Bonnie's, Quality Stones. They all have one gear only. And I think they kind of slug it out front and set it up for a horse that can make that big rally from off the pace. And the Lasix might move her up a little bit too.
This for me is a spot that I really like, and we've talked about in horizontal situations before, where I think you can get the best speed and the best closer and use those for most of your tickets going forward. I totally agree. Vacay, best closer, all the reasons Jessica said, I don't need to make the case again. But there is a speed horse I want in case she just goes to the front and breaks the race apart. And that's number 6, Breakfast at Bonnie's, who I thought ran unsustainably fast early last time and has every right to improve in the second race off the layoff. So my A-line is going to be 6 and 4. I did have a couple of fairly big prices I might try to work in on some horizontal tickets. They are the 2, Happy Sophia. She's run near enough the figure par for me to warrant inclusion at what I think could be a legitimate double-digit price for a barn that's actually shown some signs of life of late. And the 5, Eloquent Speaker, has form that's probably a little bit better than it looks, especially the last run where she attended a fast pace before weakening on what might not have been the best part of the track. So insofar as I can afford it, there'll be some 2s and 5s, lots of 6s and 4s. And Jessica, you're happy standing alone with Vacay in this spot. I get it. The race really could be run to suit.
And you have to take for me, feel like I have to take a stand somewhere for me to keep it at a reasonable ticket.
Makes perfect sense to me. Let's talk about race number 7. We've got 3 and up claiming types going 1 mile on the dirt. Jessica, I'll throw this one back to you. How are we going to get through this leg?
So this is the reason where I've had to be conservative kind of throughout the early part of this ticket. I thought this one was really tough to figure out. It's a pretty salty bunch. It's a hard knocking, really nice group of horses. My top choice is probably number 11. That's Dark Storm, but like not with a gun to my head. This is a salty group. I like him first time off the claim. I think he may offer a little bit of value here. He's kind of a nice, consistent, hard knocking type of horse. Likes the big A. I do as well. So plenty to like there. But again, he's up against it. This is a really evenly matched group. I'm also using kind of the 4, the 8, the 7, the 2, just tossing a few in here. As a public handicapper, I have a real hard rule against ever hitting the all button in a public ticket. My job is to have an opinion, so make one.
Yeah, it is a race where, in other words, races, sometimes we call them as many as you can afford. Yeah. I was going to try to go. So that was my initial read of the race. I decided to try to drill down in this spot, and the more I looked at it, the more I kept coming back to, and it's a bit unfortunate, right? When your first gut is you want to spread a lot, and then I come back and I'm going to give you, I don't know, is it going to be the favorite over the second choice? It might be, but sometimes that can work out in horizontal betting because people are spreading. It's so obvious to spread that even though they're the first and second choice, sometimes you can get a little bit of juice in the picks. That's what I'm.
And sometimes you just need to get through the race and get to the next one.
I like Hammer and Aimer. I just think he's a push button type. Solid figures, has improved so much for the for the new barn, and I think should be able to get a pretty good trip from just off the pace. And then I thought that the 9 Mexican Wonder Boy had a chance to be the best speed, set the pace last time off that long break. And what I really liked about it was did that despite not breaking well. And I think that this move to the outside could be beneficial. I mean, I'm going to grind on this race some more, and I probably will on some narrower tickets, try to come up with a couple other backups. But from here, I was going to try to get out 7 and 9. Jessica's spread was 11, 4, 8, 7, 2 with preference for the 11. Let's move on to our stakes race on the card. We've got the Garland of Roses going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And this is a race where I mentioned Charlton Baker before. I love the job he's done with the 2 glass ceiling. Really stands out on those 2 recent runs, looking to break through, if you see what I did there, at the stakes level today. I did want a couple of backups as well. The 5 Starfront, I thought could be given another chance after that rough trip last time on the off-going. It's shown a lot of promise. And then another that I definitely want on some tickets is the 6 Sadie Lady. Classy mare, could prove the best speed, and I thought could have a subtle class edge against this bunch. When you look at, who Glass Ceiling's been running against most of her career, Starfront's inexperience. Sadie Lady, I think she's won 8 times in like 21 starts. That could prove telling in a spot where I think she could have the run of the race from the front. So 2, 5, and 6 for me in the Garland of Roses. Where are you?
I mean, looks like you cribbed my notes exactly. Glass Ceiling, really flattered when Lady Rocket came back. I think she's the legitimate top contender here. Just a really nice horse who's consistently improving. Starfront is a bit of a mystery to me. Her last race, I mean, it was a tough trip, but you would have just thought this horse would like it off track so much more than she did. I thought she spun her wheels over it the entire time as well. And I don't know if it was the bumping at the start. They got her just a little discombobulated, but she never looked comfortable throughout the race. But again, pedigree only takes you so far. This horse on paper should have liked the wet track, clearly didn't, but I think she's has some backlash and should be awfully tough. And I also am using Sadie Lady. I think the Adverse Barn's just too tough to leave off a ticket right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was pretty forgiving about the last run for Starfront, if only because of the, when they break slow and then they rush up into the fast pace. When they're, I agree, it's not like she was getting over it well, but I just feel like you can, you've got like 3 different excuses to pick from. So why? So again, this is me being forgiving over here.
I'll give her another chance. I am a Juddmonte fan, so why not?
There you go. It's one of some great families, that's for sure. Let's talk about our nightcap race number 9. 3 and up fillies and mares at the $16,000 level, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. Jessica, how are we going to get paid?
This is a tough one. This is a tough race. I'm taking a big swing with a big long shot, and that's number 5, Betty's Smile. I, have been accused at multiple times as being a little biased towards my old New England friends, and I never lose faith in them. Carl Grusmark was a great longtime New England trainer. I've been very pleased to see him have a lot of success at Finger Lakes, but he's also live at Aqueduct, especially this time of year. I know they've moved their stable. This horse does need to make a step forward, but second start off of a little bit of a freshening. Looked like she had some real ability at Finger Lakes over the summer. And I think if she can get back to that sort of form, this is not a group of world beaters. That should be good enough to put her right in the mix. And kind of a huge price will likely get way overlooked because people see the Finger Lakes form and discount it.
Especially coming off a run like that, which is another run that can be excused. It's sort of the poor woman's version of the trip we were just talking about. Break slow, rush up into a pace. Like, I'm not going to worry about beating 16 lengths when that happens. This isn't, I'll be honest, I didn't come up with Betty's Smile, but off that case, I am going to throw in as a backup. Did you have any other numbers you wanted to mention for this last race?
Donnybrook Girl, I think, does need to make a step forward, but she's getting pretty significant class relief, and I think that might be enough to put her a little bit ahead of where she has been. Number 13, try to pass on that one.
It's tough. Both those outside runners, I think, are going to catch a ton of money.
Yeah.
I didn't love either one. I could see defensively throwing either in as a backup. I ended up going with the 2 Bella Principessa on top. More of a turf horse for sure in my mind, but she's in good form, and the dirt numbers do still fit in this spot. I thought there was a good chance the race would be run to suit as well, with Franco securing a good spot, hopefully not on the rail, but saving some ground and able to pass tired runners late. We'll see. It's not with a lot of confidence, but I did make her the most likely winner. I also thought that the 3 Hey It's Tati was a little bit interesting. This is a horse who's had some really bad luck with trips in the last 2. I thought deserved another shot. And then another one at a big price I thought was worth thinking about including was the 12 Charlotte Webley. Has plenty of old runs that would be very competitive with these, and I'm just going to excuse the last race as it preceded a layoff. Another opportunity where I'll sometimes be forgiving and reach back. I don't like doing that with horses at the low end of the odds spectrum, but with a runner that's almost sure to be double digits, I'm going to go ahead and put Charlotte Webley in on my A-line. 2, 3, and 12. And then I like the idea of, if I can afford it, mixing in the 5 and maybe a little bit 13, 14 to close things out at Aqueduct.
There's one more horse I might use as well, and that's the 11. That's Tangoberg. One of my favorite handicapping rules. Like, I love a cheap non-winners of 2 lifetime sort of race. It's probably my favorite condition. You can tell where I learned to handicap. But I think horses, breaking your maiden's one thing. And then it's getting that second win where horses can really stall and get very stuck getting that second victory. So I always do give a little bit of interest to a horse making their first try against winners, because you never know. At this point, this horse really could be any kind. Probably isn't, but she could be.
Going to be a huge price for Englehart and My Purple Haze stables, that's for sure. Did catch money in the debut as well. Hasn't been the most productive race, but I mean, I'm not going to talk you off. I love that idea in these N2L spots of finding it's the one spot where, when I learned to handicap, you hear a lot about, first time against winners, be careful. At this level, first time against winners.
It's my favorite angle.
Yeah, in the N2L, that bug becomes a feature. I totally agree with you. So.
Absolutely.
All right, lots of good ideas there. Hopefully we helped you out. We gave you some winners here for this Pick 6 at Aqueduct. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, Jessica. We'll have to have you back on very soon.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Very important announcement, folks. We have a charity auction going on right now from an anonymous donor, and the proceeds are going to be going to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. And this collection is just awesome. Probably the easiest way to get there. trfinc.org/Lelands is the URL. This thing's closing tomorrow. I think it's about midday tomorrow. That's Saturday, December 11th. So do not hesitate if this interests you at all. And it's not every lot you're going to see in this auction, but lots 1189 through 1195, and then again 1197. If you're watching on YouTube, we're clicking through now. These Kentucky Derby signed programs. This is a one-of-a-kind collection. Honestly, if I was in the memorabilia game at all, I would be bidding on every one of these lots, and I'd want the whole thing. Really, really cool. The bids are very low at the moment. Honestly, there are some steals to be had. Who knows how it's going to happen, as these auctions do, of course, tend to run up at the end. But this is absolutely worth a look. trfinc.org/Lelands. If you can't remember that, you can also find it through our page, trfinc.org/players. And oh, by the way, if you do go to trfinc.org/players, still opportunities to get some last minute holiday gifts in the form of whiskeys. If you donate to the TRF, we will send you either the Woodford Reserve 2021 limited edition bottles signed by Graham Motion and John Velasquez, or of course our ITM rye, 4-year-old Empire rye, 4 months extra in apple brandy barrels. Go to trfinc.org/players to check it out. Next up on the show, very happy to be joined once again, as we have several times this season, to talk about the Jra Races Saturday night. Candice Hare. Candice, how's it going?
It's going well. How about yourself?
Things are good. Bit too much travel. Though I'll be honest, if I'd had the opportunity to travel over to Asia this weekend, I think I would. And while I definitely want to go and check out some JRA racing sooner than later, this weekend, I'm also super duper interested in these Hong Kong international races, and there's a lot of crossover Japanese participation as well.
There is. Have you been to Hong Kong yet?
I've never been. It's on the bucket list, and depending on what happens in the world, maybe next week. You've been?
Many times. Highly recommended, especially this week, of course.
What do we have to look forward to in terms of the Japanese runners in Hong Kong? I don't, not necessarily folks looking to get tips and whatnot. We have a whole other video coming up, a preview of the HKR night with Naomi Tucker and Tim Carroll and Pat Cummings. But just in terms of the main storylines, USA fans might be paying attention to.
Well, I think the big race they'll be paying attention to is the Hong Kong Cup. I mean, it's the big one in general anyway, but you do have your major Japanese participants in there. Of course, we have Loves Only You, who, for Breeders' Cup fame, now Americans all know who she is, so she was well deserving of recognition even before that victory. And she's taken on Leigh Papale, who had quite a very, very nice start to her career. Maybe the shine has come off just a little bit, but might be the right type for Hong Kong. Of course, in that race, the Hong Kong Cup draw is super important, and Loves Only You drawn well, as was Leigh Papale. And Leigh Papale likes to show speed, so she'll make things interesting. I do think that race between the two of them. So I'm eagerly looking forward to seeing where, your group of experts, that's a strong group there. Pat Cummings, Tim Carroll, and Naomi Tucker, they know their stuff. So I'll be interested in seeing who they maybe like of the two Japanese runners.
Excellent. Good stuff. Of course, 40 minutes between races for Hong Kong, and Japanese racing going on in the midst of that Saturday night, right? Do I have my calendar correct?
You do have it correct. Yes, we will be looking ahead to the Group 1 Hanshin Juvenile Fillies. So while in Hong Kong, we're focused on kind of the stars of now, right? Over in Japan, we're going to be focused on the stars of tomorrow a little bit. The 2-year-old filly is going to be going a mile.
Who leads the market in that? Are you far enough along in your study a few days out that you have a selection?
I do. This race is always difficult. I find that, the 2-year-old, this Hanshin Juvenile Fillies, and then we have the Asahi High Futurity for the males. These are kind of the championship 2-year-old races. So think of them like the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. It really is their equivalent of that. And you tend to see more often than not the best horses win these races, which sounds obvious, but so often in 2-year-old races, I think we don't necessarily see the best horses win, right? There's just a little bit more chaos sometimes in those races. Not so in Japan. And the one thing I will say, looking to next year, is often the winners of these races as 2-year-olds go on to be very, very good older horses. That definitely is different than what we tend to see in our 2-year-old championships. But the horse who I expect to take the most money is going to be Stornacia. This is the daughter of Lord Kanaloa, who's going to be ridden by Christophe Lemaire. She is a sister to a horse named Stelvio, who you might remember from a couple of years ago, who was very, very good at 2. He finished second in the male's equivalent of this race. She was a winner on debut in her newcomer race. She finished second in the Group 3 Saudi Arabia Royal Cup. Obviously, the jockey booking going to be big for her. So I expect her to take a significant amount of money. But there are a few others who intrigue. One of them is going to be Circle of Life for me. I find her interesting because she's a daughter of Epiphania, who was a Japan Cup winner. Typically, you tend to see his progeny do better with distance and time. She's not necessarily going to get more distance here. She's been running over a mile, but her last 2 races, boy, she's been very good. Just start number 4 of her career. I find her really interesting in this race. She's not going to be a huge price by any means, but Circle of Life, I think, is definitely a horse who merits some consideration. I'd be looking for about 7-1, maybe thereabouts for her. But this race is wide open. So often in these races, we see horses who are obvious. You have a huge standout favorite, and we really just don't have that this year. If you're looking to take just a crazy flyer, this horse is over 100-1 in Japan. Probably won't be that here, but should be a big price. I'd give a long look to Tana the Wing, just for if you have a couple bucks in your account to throw on as a flyer to win. Another daughter of Epiphania. She was sensational on debut. This is her first time going against winners, so they chucked her straight into the deep water. We'll see how good she really is. But that debut effort was very, very good and obviously open to bundles of improvement.
Lots of reasons to stay up late for horse players on Saturday night into Sunday morning. I know I'm going to be taking a long nap in the middle of the afternoon. Maybe get the Christmas tree up, a mug of eggnog or two, set that alarm, and wake up and check out the top-notch racing from Asia Saturday night. Japan racing, a couple more weeks left before the end of the season. Any other particular races you're looking forward to seeing, or horses you want to see?
I mean, I suppose we're always looking ahead to the Arima Kennen. Of course, that's one of the biggest races of the year in Japan, so it is one to keep in mind. We do still have that to come. And honestly, I'm looking forward to the males equivalent of this race. Again, the Asahi High Futurity. I think, so often, again, we're in this mindset that we think 2-year-olds don't go on to do great things. And in Japan, that is just absolutely not the case. When you look through the horses who have won that race in the past, you're going to see a lot of names who will be familiar to you. And of course, last year in the race, we had some North American connections. Grenadier Guards won, the son of Wavell Avenue. So you never know what you're going to get in these races. Not only are you seeing nice, young, promising horses, but oftentimes these days you're seeing horses out of mares in particular from North America who maybe you watched and loved to watch race. So plenty of reason to be interested.
And that's going to just be more and more when you look at
Yes.
the action from the Future Star, well, not the Future Star sale, the Night of the Stars sales from
Yes.
Basic Tipton, with Japanese buyers walking away with something on the order of 7 of the top 10 race mares. So,
yeah, they're doing it everywhere. It's not just in North America either. You see similar results over in Australia in their sales, and even Europe as well. So if you're somebody who enjoys racing, whether it's domestically or abroad, and you love some of these race mares, it pays off to watch Japan because you see a lot of their little ones running around.
Very good stuff. Candice, always a pleasure to be joined by you, and we will have you back on soon.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Looking for that last-minute Christmas gift for the special degenerate in your life? Well, why don't you go to oldsmokeclothing.com and look at our InTheMoneyPodcast.com array of t-shirts. Some of them have limited sizes remaining, so I'm not going to push too hard on the one that I was really referencing there, the degenerate horse player tee. But we've also got the chalk-eating weasel. We've got I Won and So Did They. We've got One Time. And I think maybe we still have a few of the Alive in the Pick 5 shirts as well. Lots of great stuff. And of course, it's not just there. Go elsewhere on the site too, oldsmokeclothing.com. You find all kinds of cool stuff, including oldsmokeclothing.com/JK, where you'll find that JK collection of shirts. They're comfy. What can I say? And if you use the promo code MONEY, you're eligible for free shipping. So the easiest way to get to our shirts is to go to inthemoneypodcast.com/oldsmoke. You can also just go to the Old Smoke Clothing website and navigate under the Our Partners tab and find us that way. But we encourage you to check it out. Start your journey at inthemoneypodcast.com/oldsmoke. Next up on the show, very happy to welcome a returning guest. He's done pretty well in his time on our various programs on the In the Money Media Network, especially when we used to do the Stronach 5 shows, where he one time helped us snap a fairly too long streak of not giving out winning tickets on the show. And then on another time, he gave us I can't remember if it was a $50 horse or a horse that paid 50 to 1. But either way, it was impressive. You know him from the Golden Gate simulcast coverage, where he does a fantastic job as their announcer and analyst. Matt Dinerman, how are things?
Things are great, Pete. Happy holidays. And we have closing week this week at Golden Gate Fields. A lot of horsemen ready to run their horses, 2 stakes races. It's going to be a lot of fun. How you doing?
Things are good. Things are good. Well, whenever we get a weekend when Golden Gate and Santa Anita are on at the same time, there's a bet that I know you're a big fan of, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about here from our friends at Santa Anita and Golden Gate and First Racing in general, the Golden Hour bets. For those that are uninitiated, let them know how it works.
So the Golden Hour wagers, there's 2 different wagers. There's the Golden Hour Late Pick 4 and the Golden Hour Double. The Golden Hour Late Pick 4 is a Pick 4 sequence combining the last 2 races at Santa Anita and the last 2 races at Golden Gate. Then you've got the Golden Hour Double, which of course is a daily double bet, the last race at Santa Anita, followed by the last race at Golden Gate. And it's a fantastic bet. The minimum to bet, it's raised up. The takeout is lower. You're going to get an overlay payout with that in mind. These pay really, really well. It's become a really popular wager. I think the horse players really enjoy it, and that's evident by the pool size. And the good news is that with these wagers, we're getting races that are very competitive. The racing secretaries, Chris Mers and Patrick Mackey, at both places are making sure that the races have good competitive field sizes. You're not really going to get, I don't think, favorites that are 6-5 even money on the morning line in these types of races because we want it to be competitive. So just a really good bet, and a lot of people, not only in California but all across the country, are diving into that. And I've gotten only positives about that wager. Honestly, I haven't heard too many people. I don't think I've heard anybody say anything negative. I hear all the time, when's the golden hour wagers coming back? When are they getting back to it? And the day after Christmas, it's an extra Christmas present for those who celebrate Christmas because it'll be back.
Well, very well described right there. Designed by players, for players, and that combination of the slightly higher minimums with the low takeout, it really, really helps the rank and file player. One of the sneaky things people think low minimum player friendly, but fortunately, it's not really the way for me. It works out in the real world because you have some of the biggest players in the game, the computer players, that they're able to bet so efficiently in that instance. They also prefer pools with higher takeout because their rebate is bigger. So you do those two things, and you really bring a horse player able to come to the table and bring a gun to a gunfight instead of a knife, as is so often those cases. And you make a great point about how it may have been conceived by players and be player friendly, but the industry's really gotten behind it too, and the folks at Santa Anita and Golden Gate in terms of supporting it and putting out the right kind of field sizes. It's one of my favorites as well. And yeah, we'll be right back. You mentioned Golden Gate taking a little bit of a break after this weekend, but you come back on the 26th as well, right?
We do come back on the 26th of December, and our calendar at that point pretty much mimics Santa Anita's, although we do run a little bit long. Actually, I'm going to retract that. They of course recently in the last couple of years added dates in May and June. So we're going to be going till mid-June. Let's just say that we'll be going till mid-June, from December 26th to mid-June. So it's the longest meet that we have here at Golden Gate Fields. It's a fun meet, obviously. We've got the El Camino Real Derby in February, and we saw the Preakness winner Rombauer in that race last year. And the El Camino Real Derby, a very prestigious race. It, for the last few years, has been a race that if you win it, you get a free berth into the Preakness, and that'll be allowed again this coming year in 2022. We've got Gold Rush weekend, the week before Kentucky Derby weekend, featuring the San Francisco Mile and a number of other stakes. That's become a very popular weekend, not only for horse players and just a great card on that week, but also people on track. So there's a lot going on, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Well, we look forward to talking more to our friends at First Racing, and hopefully coming up with another deal to be covering the Golden Hour as we did last year. And we'll be knocking on your door to come back and help us handicap these races, because as we like to say in these parts, no good deed goes unpunished.
Well, you know what? It's always a blessing to be on the show. And let me tell you, when we come on here, we have good luck. So I'm going to say, Pete, that you are a good luck charm.
I'll accept that. I've nominated myself for that position before, whether it's sitting next to people who do well in handicapping contests. So, Doug Bradar, Jonathan Kitchen, I'm looking at you, or coming out to Del Mar in the fall meet and sitting with friends who win multiple races on a day. Billy Koch, Gary Fenton of Little Red Feather. I'm looking at you. I've told them if they ever need a big win, they can import me, and doesn't even have to be a 5-star resort. I'll settle for 4 stars. They can put me up in, and doesn't have to be first class, just business class. And you need the good luck.
If the pool has lawn chairs, you're in, right?
That's about the size of it. Let's talk about this late pick 4 at Golden Gate. We don't have a Golden Hour pick 4 to talk about, so we'll talk about the late pick 4 at Golden Gate on Saturday, the 11th. It kicks off in our 8th race on the day, and very curious to get your thoughts about this one. We've got $20,000 claimers, 3 and up filly and mares going a mile on the turf. Matt, who's your idea of the winner?
This is a very competitive race, and the first thing I thought of when looking at this race is I think there's a good amount of pace in this race. So I'm naturally going to look towards an off-the-pace type. Our turf course, I think, I'm not going to say that it favors speed, but we definitely see speed holding on the grass. We've seen in other turf courses in America that sometimes it's hard to win on the lead. Here, I think it's a little more on the fair side in that regard. I think you can win close to the pace, even if the pace is swift. I'm still looking for an off-the-pace runner. Picks are sort of subject to change at this point since the recording, but I definitely think Prance from the Neil Drysdale barn is the one to beat. This is a drop in class, I think, for her, so she's naturally the one to beat in here. I'm also taking a really hard look at Navy Queen, who drops out of Allowance Company. And this filly here was just in a little bit too tough last time out. She finished about 5 lengths behind Reiwa, who we're going to see in the Miss America Stakes on Sunday afternoon. Just to pop at number 11, another one I really like. I love the way she stretched out last time out. I liked her that day. She's facing a lot tougher in here, but she's a pretty nice filly for a trainer, Tim McCanna, who's firing on all cylinders right now. He's a fantastic horseman, and his horses are running great. So those are the three I'm really keying in on. And I would probably rather take a stand with maybe Navy Queen at 8-1. I like that price over maybe Prance, who's 7-2 on the morning line. So I'm looking for a runner off the pace here, Pete, really, and that's the theme for me in the first leg.
9, 2, and 11. I'm going to write them down in that order. I like Prance a lot in this spot. I do recognize the fact that this is a level where, in a competitive race, 7-2, I wouldn't want to go too much lower than the 7-2 in the morning line. But assuming that price were to become a reality, I feel like she had a tricky trip last time in a race that got very fast in the middle part of the race when she was making her move, then struggled to find room, didn't really finish. But I think the combination of the trouble and the pace dynamic that they might have taken the starch out of that finish, I'm willing to give her another chance in this race number 8 at Golden Gate. And I'll take longer looks at your 9 and 11 to potentially go with her. Let's move on to race number 9. We've got Calbred Stakes action in the Bear Fan. We move on to the synthetic going 6 furlongs. I like the horse in here. Number 4, Princess Vivian. I thought was interesting. This is another race where I think the pace could end up heating up. Timeform US has it coded as fast, and Princess Vivian has plenty of finish. And I also like the fact that she's been trying to close into slow paces that may make those races a little bit better than they look. And then going into a positive pace scenario here in the third start off the layoff, a lot to like with Princess Vivian at 8-1. How did you see it, Matt?
I see the pace scenario the same way. Another race, I think the pace is going to be pretty fast in this race. That's really going to help Princess Vivian. And we'll start with her, talking about her because you like her. Princess Vivian, just talking about what I know from watching her over the years, she is one that seems like she sort of needs things to set up for her, but there's ample reasons to believe that that could happen in this race. There's a lot of pace. She likes it. She actually won this race, Pete, in 2019 at a price. So she has won this race already. And the thing about her is she's actually pretty darn consistent. Even though there are a couple runners in here that she's finished right behind in recent starts, in those races, the paces weren't probably as quick as she's going to get in here. A really small mare, people talk about her a lot, is this really tiny mare who tries really, really hard. She's sort of the little engine that could out there. But a pretty cool mare, and she is definitely one I think you want to key in on. I think she is one that could definitely win this race. She's 8-1 on the morning line, so I'm definitely going to sit here. I didn't make her the top pick, but I will sit here and say I agree that she is one that should be taken seriously. Another race, I'm sort of looking for an off-the-pace type in here. I know Revelation's running out of her conditions, number 3. She's still eligible to win at the first level allowance condition again. She won at that level 2 starts ago and ran pretty darn well. And that's fast enough to win this race, I think. Last time out, she sprinted 5 furlongs on the turf. I don't think that's really her ball game. Tip Top Gal is one that's doing fantastic. She has great recent form. She's probably the best of the locals in here, other than maybe the morning line favorite Nardini, who I might use. But yes, she's been very good sprinting in the past, but she's coming off a layoff. Trainer Andy Mathis wins at 30% first off a layoff between 61 and 180 days, and he wins at a higher percentage off a layoff over 180 days. Andy is fantastic with runners off the layoff. He's a very good trainer in general. He's fantastic at everything, but I don't think fitness is going to be a problem. I do think that she might be a little bit better on the grass in general, even though she's 2 for 3 on synthetics. I still think, just knowing her over the years, she has a much bigger kick on the grass. So it'll be interesting to see how she does off the layoff. I think it's a very competitive race. Even I'm a happy cat, number 12 at 12-1's interesting. Second start off the break. She definitely needed her last start off a layoff. She didn't have much of a work pattern heading into that race, and I thought she put up a pretty respectable effort, but there is a lot of speed in this race, and that's why a runner like her and Emerald Down Stakes winner Daffodil Sweets, who's really nice. They're very nice fillies, but there's a lot of pace. So I'm sort of looking for an off the pace type.
I wrote you down 3, 5, and 4 as the main considerations, with maybe the 10 and 12 as backups from this far out. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think so. And it's a very competitive race. I mean, this is a race I wouldn't be scared to go deep in either, really.
Let's move on to race number 10, 3 and up filly and mare allowance types, going a mile and an eighth on the grass. Matt, who do you like in here?
I think this race will be pretty formful. Clearly Gone, coming off of 2 runner-up finishes to Rewa, who we're going to see, of course, in the Miss America, like I said earlier, on Sunday. And I think this mare here, yeah, she's 0 for 2, going a mile and an eighth on the turf. But the thing is, when she did go a mile and an eighth on the turf, in both instances, they were a long time ago. She was probably outclassed in those races in Southern California. So the distance isn't a problem for me. She's doing really well for trainer Jonathan Wong. And Summer Daisy, #1 from the Patty Gallagher barn, coming off a maiden win at Del Mar in September, freshens up a few months, comes off a layoff here, but she fits the bill. So these are the 2 I really like in general. And they're the only ones I really like in here, because I just think that when you look at the field, they're a little bit faster than everybody else. And I don't think there's going to be that much pace in this race. La Vikina, #2, is probably going to go to the lead. She gets very brave when she's on the lead. The problem with her is the distance. I just have this feeling that a mile and an eighth is a distance that she's vulnerable to getting run down in. And Clearly Gone has finished ahead of her twice now. So I was thinking about La Vikina, saying maybe she could wire this field, going a mile and an eighth against runners that are pretty tough in general. And she's finished behind Clearly Gone already a couple times. I'm going to pass. But that's really my thoughts on race 10. I sort of think this will be a form-4 race.
I agree, but I am going to press up the 1 Summer Daisy over Clearly Gone for 2 main reasons. I am thinking Summer Daisy could be a better price. I just love her profile, this progressive 3-year-old late in the 3-year-old season, running fast enough back in September to be competitive. Now, that was just the maiden win there, but she's been competitive in all 4 starts, and I just think she's going to sit a really beautiful trip and hopefully be a better price than Clearly Gone. As far as I can afford it, I may do some defensive backups with the 3, but I'm all about the 1 here in this allowance race that goes as number 10. And that moves us on to a race that has me scratching my head. And I'm hoping you have a little bit more clarity than I do when it comes to race number 11. We've got these nickel claimer filly and mares going 5 on the synthetic. Looks a bit of a grab bag to me, but I'll ask you the key question, Matt. How are we going to get paid?
I have absolutely no idea. I have no idea. I am like you. I'm looking at this race. You could throw a dart at the board, and all of the names of the horses are on the board there. And whatever horse it hits, I just throw up my hands and say, okay, that works. Let's give it a shot here. I mean, this is a very competitive race, obviously. There are going to be people that play pretty significant tickets in this sequence that probably all this race and hope for a price. And with that in mind, I'm going to look for a price. I think Cyclone Slew's a little bit interesting, coming off a layoff for Roger Hansen, #3. She's 8 to 1. I mean, you look at the current favorite, Lovely Who's Star. She's 0 for 8. And last time out, she dueled with eventual winner Quick Time, the length of the lane. And Quick Time is notorious for waiting on horses, and she could never get by her, Lovely Hussar. So I don't know if she's a favorite you can trust. I think this is extremely competitive. The speed figures indicate that. I think Lady Skywalker is very interesting, #6. She went to the lead last time out off a 14-month layoff and weekend, and I like that angle too, whether it's a first-time starter going as a second-time starter or a runner coming off a long layoff. First time out, they show speed and fade. Second time, they're a lot more fit and they run a lot better. Yeah, she was going 5.5 furlongs last time out. She's going 5 here. That could help as well. Evan Roman aboard. He's a very good jockey. So those are 2 horses I really like in this spot. Those are the 2 I'm really sort of keying in on as my top 2 that I like. And the others, it's sort of a grab bag here, but I will be spreading in this race. One thing I want to mention real quick, Pete, is going 5 furlongs. I keep contradicting myself in my mind. It's different going 5 furlongs on the grass than 5 on the Tapeta. You would think that when you go 5 furlongs on the Tapeta, you want to see runners with tactical speed because it's a short race, and you just don't want to see runners far off the pace having too much to do, especially lower level main claimers. But don't trick yourselves. It's not always that simple, and sometimes you see total pace collapses in a race like this. So not only is it difficult to find who's the classiest horse in the race, who are classy horses, who are coming into the race well. It's a lower level main claimer. They can be inconsistent at times, but it's also tough to figure out how things are going to work based on the pace, I think, in these types of races.
I wouldn't judge anyone who throws up the old all ball in this spot, but I do have a couple of numbers I'll nominate for consideration at a price, starting with number 9, Hot and a Mess, listed at 20 to 1 on the morning line. And it's the angle here is really just the cutback. I'm hoping that I don't think she will not be on the lead coming out of a mile race back to the 5, but I think has enough tactical foot to be in touch and maybe just can be seen to better effect. When you look at the pace lines of the last race, she was really running unsustainably fast early. And I'm just hoping she can outrun those 20 to 1 odds. I mean, this is a runner that's run 7 times and never hit the board. So it will not be like breaking out the piggy bank to key the day around this one. But this is also a horse in a race that's chaotic that I would not be leaving out a bit. I think Hot and a Mess could do a lot better here. And then Foxy Facts, the number 2, I thought was a little bit interesting. The layoff is not a plus, and definitely a big question mark coming back after not being seen for 96 days in the afternoon. But the angle here is just unexposed at the level. And sometimes when you get down to this bottom level, that idea of running for the first time at a new low level will wake horses up. This is a 5-year-old mare that should be double-digit odds, well drawn on the inside, and I'm going to include on some tickets as well. So I'll mess around with the 9 and the 2. I'll definitely take an extra look at your 3 and 6. And so far as I could afford it, I wouldn't mind using practically all of them in this spot, with the possible exception, and maybe I'm knocking her right into the winner's circle here, but I do think Lovely Hussar, to me, looks like one to take on, because she's going to be overbet, I think, relative to her actual chance of winning.
I think so. I think that she's one that has a tendency to wait on horses a little bit. She's been pretty darn consistent, but hasn't been able to win. Is someone calling you to tell you who's going to win this race? We don't know. You can answer the phone. That'd be great.
I leave a note on the door and I tell the delivery man, don't ring while, but I give the time I'm going to be on air and I say don't, but they don't look.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping that maybe they've got the answers on the other line there, but I'll just go on and say that Lovely Hussar, yeah, I agree with you. I think she's one that is not necessarily one that you could trust. She's probably going to get overbet in this race with her speed figures in mind. Here's something that's interesting too, and I like that you use prices here because this is a spread race, and look for prices if you're going to spread. If you're going to spread, why use favorites, right? But what's interesting is that the morning line favorite is not in the main body of the field. There are 2 AEs in this race, and the 2 to 1 morning line favorite is a big class dropper from Southern California named Starship Endeavor from Bob Hess Jr.'s barn. The problem here is, 1, she has to get into the race, and 2, if she does, she draws an awfully tough post, Pete. So I just want to mention to the listeners and viewers here that if she does draw in, I'm still going to try to beat her very much, knowing that post position. And it's a big drop in class, too, and she hasn't been running great.
Before we get out of here, Matt, I know that Sunday's closing day. Anything special horse players should be looking for?
The good news is if you move the page to Sunday, this is closing day, which means we have mandatory payouts on Sunday. The pick 6 will be paid out. 11 races on Sunday, and this recording was made on Friday. We've got $31,000 in that jackpot pool right now. Now, regardless of if somebody hits this jackpot today or tomorrow, Saturday, we're going to pay out the pool on Sunday, so keep that in mind. The rolling high 5 bet, of course, that's a mandatory payout in the last race. And both pick 5 bets, the late pick 5 and the early pick 5, which is my favorite bet ever because it's a low 14% take-up bet. We see overlay payouts every single time. Those 2 pick 5s are going to be mandatory payouts. So Sunday first post early, 11:45 a.m. on Sunday, just like Saturday's card as well. Those mandatory payouts are going to be in play.
We'll see how it all plays out on Saturday night. Matt, thank you so much for your time today. We'll get you back soon to talk about a little golden hour action as the Santa Anita meet gets ready to launch on December 26th, the same day Golden Gate will return from its brief hiatus. We will see you on the TV and hear you on the microphone, and we'll do it again soon.
Thanks so much, Pete. Have an awesome day, buddy.
That's going to do it for this edition of the show. We'd like to thank Matt Dinerman, Candice Hare, and Jessica Paquette. We'll give a nice holler as well to producer Craig. I actually made him have to make an edit this week, so he's going to be salty with me later. But you should be checking him out anyway on his show, Odds Honest Truth, which is really taking off. You want to join the message board over there on Chalkboard for Odds Honest Truth. We still have this whiskey giveaway going on. You write ITM whiskey in the comments, and you'll have a chance to get a free bottle. This is a really cool app that you're going to want to check out. So go over to Chalkboard, sign up for the Odds Honest Truth board. What else do we have to say? Who else do we want to thank? How about we thank our founding sponsors, Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. You heard about them earlier in the show. And also 10 Strike Racing, who've been with us from the beginning. We always love to root for the purple and black and their partners around here. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.
Just me